Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is Court. I'm an artist, painter, illustrator, writer, whatever. Currently based in Maine. Thanks for stopping by. Today, we are going to be talking about social media. Dun dun dun. But yeah, I had a comment asking if I could talk a little bit about my experience posting on social media as an artist. And so that's what the topic of discussion is today. I'll also be talking a little bit about the painting that you are going to be seeing if you are watching and not doing your dishes or whatever. Both are perfectly valid options. But before that, I must shill a little bit for myself. Currently, I have a Kickstarter going for Saints for Girls Volume 1. This is a 60-page graphic novella about a fictional emo band getting together. It's my little pet project that I've been kind of chipping away at, and this is their first kind of print debut. The Kickstarter includes an exclusive sticker. The books come signed, you get your name in the back. There's options to get one of the original sketch pages or an original drawing. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. If it's successful and, we get to print these books, I'm donating half the profit to some local mutual aid organizations in Maine. I know everything is kind of difficult right now, and so I unfortunately am not really in a place where I can donate directly to these great organizations doing really important work. So I'm hoping this can be a vessel to support the people who are, making an impact on the community around me. So yeah, that being said, it's running for the month of February. If you would like to check it out, I'll leave a link in the description. Thank you. And thank you so graciously for listening, if you did listen to that, and not just skipped ahead. But yeah, the painting that you are seeing is another one of my in transit paintings. My last video was number 3, technically. The numbering is kind of loosey goosey because, I've been counting the finished works numerically, but there's a lot of sketching, kind of ideating of other stuff that whatever, you don't care. But this is number 4, technically. I had started it back in like October or November, but I had started it and I wasn't really feeling it. And I kind of just left it dormant for a while. And I thought I was actually going to just paint over it and do something completely different. But I decided to kind of push through and actually finish it because I really liked the kind of inspiration and starting point. It's interesting because on the actual piece, this painting, my favorite part is the hair. I think the hair turned out really awesome, and I want to do more stuff like that. And that was kind of part of what inspired me. But I think when I actually saw this person on the bus, I was more caught by their outfit, what they were wearing. I love an ultramarine blue, and so this, of course, was a very ultramarine blue outfit. I like the undershirt they're wearing with the polka dots too. You'll eventually see, I guess. Yeah, I had to kind of go back to the drawing board. I was trying to take lessons I learned from, my previous paintings, and I think one thing that was a good valuable lesson is that it is just paint at the end of the day. It's not gonna bite you, it can't hurt you or whatever. And so I can do whatever I want. I can just paint over it, and it's okay. I find it hard to not be super precious with what like the initial marks that I make. I find myself really attached to them, even when they're not right or good. And I'm using air quotes there because obviously there's no right and wrong. We're playing with toys. And so with this, I kind of went back to the drawing board. I did a better preparatory sketch because I hadn't done that for this one. I was kind of just going off the photo that I took, which I deleted it now. Okay, I promise I'm not gonna. I don't have nefarious purposes for these pictures, but so you'll see me kind of go through and do the lines and then block everything in. And yeah, I'm happy with how this turned out. It's a bit more literal than the last one that I did with the iPhone neck, but I think it suits it for this one. And again, I'm really happy with how the hair turned out. That's probably my favorite part. But let's talk about social media now a little bit. If this is your first introduction to me, once again, hi, but I have been posting online for over half of my life, which sends a chill down my spine when I think about it. I am 25 and a half now, and I started posting online when I was like 12 or 13, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend. It was a different time. The regulations around it were a little looser. I had started on DeviantArt, and I didn't post a lot. I was making a lot of making a lot of stuff, but of course I was 12 or 11 at this point, and so there was a lot of growing pains artistically. I had committed myself to art, and I say that in quotes because, like, I don't know, it's not that deep, but in winter break of 6th grade, because one of my friends at the time introduced me to anime and manga, and it really blew my mind. And so then I was using the internet to kind of look at more of that, and that's how I got introduced to like what digital art was at all, and just these different ways of making, the Mark Crillies and the Bailey Jays of the world, showing tutorials for like how to, making that kind of art more accessible to, little kids like me in rural New Hampshire. And so, yeah, that being said, I started on DeviantArt, and then I graduated to Tumblr. This was mainly because I was lurking on Tumblr for maybe a year before I actually started posting my own stuff. And it was for random reasons, of course, Fork Founded Kitchen. It was for Fall Out Boy specifically. And then that kind of graduated to general bandom. And yeah, that was in 2014, me thinking about it. Yeah, that was in 2014, early 2014. I think March is like March 8th or something is when I posted my official first drawing on there. And I've been going ever since, basically. I was on exclusively Tumblr for a minute, and then I got Instagram in 2015. And so I will have been posting on that for over 10 years now, I say as I slowly wither away. And yeah, I had a Twitter, and I was using that for a while. I think I got it in 2015, and then around like 2020 is when it started catching any sort of traction, like artistically. Unfortunately, with the state of Twitter, I basically left last year. The juice wasn't worth the squeeze anymore. Not to say, of course, that Instagram is really much better. It has its own problems, but the platform that I have on there is kind of too big to drop it entirely like I did on Twitter. And the bad was so bad on Twitter that I just couldn't do it. And honestly, I'm glad. I don't really miss it. I miss being able to like keep up with my friends more timely, but otherwise, yeah, don't miss it at all. But, among that, I was on like Art Amino, and that was really popular. I'm on Blue Sky. I have a Kara account. I had a TikTok. I got TikTok when many people did, early 2020, before it started. I have occasionally tried to go back to TikTok, but I just can't do it. And I guess to transition into the actual advice portion of this, the truth of the matter is that I'm not an expert, okay? I don't have a massive social media empire. I'm not paying my bills with social media at the moment. I'm not even monetized here yet. So all of this stuff is just kind of anecdotal. And I also want to emphasize that there are lots of ways of being an artist that don't involve having a thriving social media empire. I think, unfortunately, it is valuable to have some sort of social media, but it is not necessary to have like a million followers or whatever. You don't need to be the next Loish or Jazza Draws or something like that. Me naming these, that's probably revealing more about my age than anything. But yeah, I guess I have some notes written down. Let's look at my notes. You know, depending on what your career goals are, focusing a lot of time on min maxing your social media might not even really be the way to do it. And I also am like still figuring out my career goals, so I don't feel like I'm in a place where I can authoritatively tell you a guaranteed path to success, especially because I've been posting for so long. One of the unfortunate realities of social media is that it has changed so much and will continue to change until it eventually either dies, or I was about to like name some kind of like science fiction dystopian scenario, but that just feels too sad, so I'm just not going to do that. I think it could be good to think about what you actually want out of social media. So, thinking about like, are you trying to get people to buy your work? Are you trying to get people to read your webcomic? Are you trying to, just get people who are excited to be there? Do you want people who are into the same thing as you? I think thinking about it in that way can be a useful thing, especially for moments when your social media isn't doing as well or performing as well, because I think that can be kind of a grounding light against the internal stirrings and worries about what you are doing. Because if the juice is no longer worth the squeeze, then you don't have to. You don't have to do anything. I want to emphasize that. I think it is good to post multiple places. I don't want to tell you exactly what those places are, but I think putting all of your eggs in one basket is a recipe for eventual disaster. And I will cite Vine as my example here. You know, you had people who were making their budding social media careers on this app, and then all of a sudden the app dies and they had to kind of either go to Instagram or go to YouTube. And obviously there's people like Drew Gooden and Danny Gonzalez who were able to kind of go through those growing pains and eventually like have an even bigger platform than what they had before. But I think that's not the reality for everybody. And so, even with Twitter, too, if Twitter was my only platform where I had any kind of attention or following, being able to kind of drop it the way that I did would not have been. I mean, it would have been possible, but it would have hurt me more, my career more. I think, especially if you want to go the short form vertical video route, in my mind, if you're posting it to TikTok, you might as well also post it to Instagram Reels and to YouTube Shorts. And whether or not it's gonna perform well, obviously, is a concoction of factors both in and outside of your control. But you already have the video. You made the video, so you might as well just post it elsewhere, especially because there's so much algorithmic nonsense that is outside of your control. Maybe the thing that flopped on TikTok will do well on Instagram Reels and vice versa. I think consistency generally is great. The apps will kind of reward you algorithmically if you are consistently posting. I feel like a lot of people say post every day, and I will say from my personal experience that if you post like when I post every day, the apps think I'm spamming. And so my posts don't get shown to anybody. I think this, like, at least on Instagram, for example, there's challenges like Inktober, where the point is that you post every day, ideally, if you finish the challenge. And I think the algorithm used to really like that, but now I see even in like other people I follow who do those types of challenges, the drop off is severe, and I think it's because the app doesn't like it, whatever. Not to like personify this contraption, but I have found every other day or every 3 days, once every 3 days is good. So I guess that would be, you know, somewhere between 2 to maybe 4 times a week would be good. We could say 3 times a week, I guess that's the average there. And, the posting rate depends on the social media. I think for me, I've decided to try bi weekly posting here on YouTube just because whenever I try to do weekly, I can do it for like 3 weeks and then I can't. So I think for me, bi weekly will hopefully be a bit more productive long term. Like I said, TikTok, I don't know. That's scary. I don't know. I would sincerely recommend looking elsewhere for advice there just because, like, I don't really know. I did have some videos that did pretty all right. Like I think I had one that hit like 200K views and then maybe some others that got in the high tens of thousands, but otherwise, every time I try to post on there, they just like hate me. It's not that deep, but yeah, my videos just do totally garbage. And so I think I literally would need to delete my account and start over to get any kind of traction on there, which sucks. And also, I have a lot of problems with TikTok just like as a whole, so I think for me it's just not worth it. But since I am dabbling in Instagram Reels again, I've been trying to post some here as well. So that kind of speaks to that diversity thing. I think in general with social media and like being an artist and trying to grow your platform, it's like you're using a stove top and you have multiple burners going at the same time. I think on one burner, you are trying to get new followers in. So you're trying to branch out from the people who already know you and follow you and try to get them to join your following base. And then there's another pot of trying to cultivate and nourish the people who are following you already. I have found that often there's overlap between these two, but there's not always. And so I think the stuff that your current followers like does not necessarily correlate to things that'll like go super viral and vice versa. I think having videos where you're introducing yourself and your practice and whatever you're currently doing are very useful for getting new eyes in. But obviously, if someone's already following you, they hopefully know that stuff already. So it's important to kind of balance between those two ways of make posts that are accessible to someone who doesn't know you, but also aren't like super surface level and your normal followers would like too. I think that can be a good practice. I have done a lot of fan art in my day. This is not from a like cynical place of like trying to game the algorithm or anything. I just when I like something, it lives in my brain and I need to get it out of my brain by drawing it on paper, basically. That's kind of the conclusion. And so I think part of my success has been posting fan art and trying to kind of use that. But I think it's a double edged sword, right? Because I think it's kind of like if you're a streamer or something. If you're Tyler Ninja Blevins and you're only playing Fortnite, everybody knows you as the Fortnite guy. So then when you try to, I don't know, play like obscure deck builder roguelike, then his Fortnite fans would not care about it. And so the same kind of goes for fan art. I think it's good to diversify there. I had one Instagram account from 2015 to 2017 and then I kind of moved from that account because I found that the people who I don't know, it just felt like admittedly I was just kind of like an insecure teenager and it felt like everybody hated me and like nobody cared about the stuff that I made that wasn't like 21 Pilots, and so that's why I moved. Did I need to move? Not necessarily. Looking back, I think the performance was kind of fine. I've had worse plateaus now, even though my platform got a lot bigger since then. But I think we're kind of getting out of it. So, girl who's going to be okay. Yeah, all that being said, I think if you want to make fan art, you should just make it. But if you don't want to make fan art and kind of are viewing it just as a vessel for like getting clout on social media, you shouldn't do it. You should just like make the stuff that you want to make, basically. I think being yourself does go a long way, or being some curated version of yourself that you are ready to kind of share with the internet does go a long way. And I've also found that there's fan art that flops and original posts that do super well. Like my Saints for Girls portraits that I posted in 2022 did like outrageously well for like no reason. Or at least, I mean, the work is good and like they're striking portraits, but like it surprised me how well they did. And I think part of why those were successful is because I was also posting My Chemical Romance fan art a lot at the time. And so if you are already interested in emo bands, then you'll like my little girls that I have over here. Once again, check out the link in the description for the Kickstarter. But even the painting that I posted in my last video, the iPhone neck, that one did really well, and I wasn't necessarily expecting it to. But yeah, it had like a really warm reception kind of everywhere I posted it. Every Instagram and Tumblr basically, and someone bought it, which was awesome and kind of the first time that's really happened. And so, all that being said, I think staying true to yourself as much as possible and making work that you are excited about and sharing it in a way that you are excited about will help you. I don't think it'll fix everything. It doesn't guarantee that you'll gain 100,000 followers or something. But I do think that enthusiasm is part of what draws people to your work and will help them be excited to continue seeing your work. I also think it's good to kind of participate and support other artists that you follow. So, leaving comments, replying to stories. And you don't need to like become best friends with all these people, right? Like I have a lot of mutuals. And so it's hard to kind of like keep close social ties with like all of these people, especially because it's social media, so you don't know them. But I do think it goes a long way to like, if you really like something, leave a comment on it. And because, I think that kind of mutual fostering of support for artists kind of it helps it perform better in the algorithms, and then it gets pushed to other people. But also like it's just like, even though I've been posting for 13 years, it still feels nice when people say nice things about my work. I guess speaking about comments, be prepared for hate comments, or I'll just say not nice comments. I feel like hate comments like implies a certain level of malice that like is not all the time accurate. To give you an example, I got 2 YouTube short comments in like a 24-hour period that were like, damn, they hate me. But one of them said, love the art but hate the narration you're grating to listen to. My response to that is mute the fucking video. And I didn't actually comment that to them, but that was my internal response. And then I posted a reel about the carborundum paste, and someone was like, no, why did you ruin it? Even though I said, like, I'm using it as a base to do other stuff. And so, it's good to not let it get to you too personally, because unfortunately, they're like not viewing you as a person in that moment. I think it can be easy to see a comment like that and assume like that they hate you, but like in reality they are just like doom scrolling on YouTube shorts, and they see something that annoyed them, and so they're kind of just taking it out on you basically, which kind of sucks. But it can be helpful to realize that it's not actually about you, and it is good to live your life outside of social media as well. I have found in periods of my life it is very easy to get caught up, especially because a lot of social media is so number based. There is something measurable that you can see in how well or not well something is performing, or if you're gaining followers or losing followers. And so basically, finding other things that can fill that void of number going up is really good and healthy, because there is so much of it that's outside of your control that trying to let it control you is not good for anybody. It's just a fucking app, right? Like, obviously, I'm very grateful for the amount of people that follow me, but at the end of the day, it is just an app. And so you are worth more than a flop Instagram post. So, Nubby's Number Factory or Balatro, any of those types of number go up games. You could get into like Cookie Clicker. There's a lot of ways to kind of get that dopamine hit without the social media. And I think it's tough because if you are an artist, I think it's natural to kind of put your soul into every piece of work that you're making. And so when that gets rejected, then obviously it feels like you are personally getting rejected. But I don't think that's necessarily true. It's important to realize that, like, your work is existing in a bigger context than that, and you are worth more than just the work that you are making. So, yeah, looking at my notes here, don't pay for courses or one on one coaching. This could maybe be food for thought for another day, but there is a business model of giving art business advice. And I think the reality is that if someone whose entire career is built off of giving out that type of advice is not will not necessarily correlate to you having a successful career as an artist, because the person who's giving you the advice is making their money on giving people advice. They are not making money off of their artwork. I find that the people who are making money as artists are too busy doing that to, like, be posting on social media and giving out free advice. Not to, like, say that no course is worth it at all ever, but I do think you should have a discerning eye and try to get as much free advice as possible before you spend any money, especially if you're not making any type of money on your artwork at all. Unfortunately, those types of people who are offering that kind of coaching or whatever make money off of people who are hungry and want to be successful like you, perhaps. And so be wary, okay? Like, not everybody is built to be a teacher, me included. That's why I'm giving this out for free. I also think it's good to maybe not post everything that comes into your head. And of course, I want to emphasize that I do not mean, like, don't share any, like, political opinions and just keep it business as usual. I think in times like the ones we've been living in, it's important to emphasize what you believe in and who you're not fucking with. In case you don't know, fuck ICE, fuck Trump, free Palestine. I could go on. But what I more so mean by this is that I think, I mean, especially on, like, more text-based platforms, it can be very easy to kind of use it as like a journal or a diary, or kind of post things without thinking about them. And I think from a business perspective, it is good to not do that. To put it lightly, I think just being more cognizant of who could see something, the possible reach something you say could have, is good. So, instead of talking shit online, either talk shit with a friend in person, or, write it down, keep it in the drafts. You don't have to post it. And even with, like, artwork too, I think it can be good to just, like, sleep on it, make sure you want to post it. Because, your footprint is pretty much permanent. I mean, I'm sure there's some things that can kind of, like, escape, but for the most part, it'll kind of stick with you. So I think it's good to be thinking about what you're posting and making sure that you want to be associated with whatever you're posting, art or otherwise. I think going mega viral should not be your goal, and let me explain why. I think when you go super mega viral, the people who follow you will only want you for that one specific thing. And if they don't like anything else that you post, then they're not going to interact with it. And so you'll basically be, like, inflating your following number, but then, like, every post will flop, and that kind of feels bad. So slow, gradual growth is better over time. And I've found that it kind of snowballs, even though I will say, admittedly, like, for the past year and a half, or maybe like 2 years, I was plateauing on Instagram like crazy. I think I've finally kind of broken that bubble, and we're continuing to kind of, I've gotten some traction again, but me remembering what the point of me saying that was. Oh yeah, so going like super mega viral, I don't think should be your goal because I think it'll just attract almost too many eyes on you. Obviously, like you need to get new eyes on your work on a kind of consistent basis, but and I think also that being said, I found that, I think light trolling is okay. And by that, I mean it should be like self reflective. It should not be, yeah, I don't know. I think like the toxicity of social media in part comes from a lot of the like kind of rage baiting content. And so I think like as long as you're kind of ribbing yourself and you're not being malicious toward other people, it's pretty fair game. Like one person that I follow, Craig Gleason, there was a reel that they posted where they like shaved half their mustache and then they went into like this really nicely edited time lapse of their art. And that's funny. Like, and so I think stuff like that, that's cool. But, I think it's good to be nice on the internet. Has anyone thought of this? Even though it can be tempting to just kind of like I think numerically it's easier to be successful when you're like mean, unfortunately. But yeah, and not to say that you need to be like toxically positive all the time either, but yeah, I hope you get that. And I think having spaces outside of social media is good as well. This is kind of my last point here, but because we cannot control these websites and these platforms, having things you can control, like a newsletter and a portfolio website, I think both of those things are awesome, and you should look into making them if you haven't already, especially the website. I think the newsletter as well is good, but I would say if you're an artist and you say that your Instagram is your website, it's kind of like being in a multi-level marketing company and saying that you are your own boss. You're not your own boss. You are part of a chain of people that are attached to this platform, right? And so if Instagram disappears one day, you no longer have a website. And so having some kind of base where you can have your work, you can have it without having to censor yourself and being able to express yourself freely, that's also a big benefit, is really good. I can make another video about websites because I have more thoughts on that just from continuing to make websites over the years. But yeah, I think that's it. I've talked your ear off about social media enough. I think no matter what you take away from this, having kind of a grounded perspective will help you because it is ultimately like a tool. It is like one way that you can be successful, but I think it is not the end all be all, and so don't treat it as the end all be all. If it's working for you, then, I think it's good to pay attention and like kind of cultivate, whatever kind of success you're having, but if it's not going well, then you can always try other things and do other things. Don't be afraid to kind of experiment and fail. Because I think if a post flops or whatever, we, as the poster, feel a lot more, I don't know, embarrassment about it than anybody who's actually seeing it does. And the numbers just kind of fluctuate. Like even if you look at really successful people, their views and their likes, etc., fluctuate wildly. And so understanding that too can help. Let it flow through you. It is not you, it is just something that's coming and going. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you like the painting. I know I haven't, this is a less painting focused video than my previous one, but I hope it's been good background fodder. I'll put this on my imprint. The other one's on my imprint too. Feel free to leave any comments. If you'd like me to talk about anything else or go into more detail in another video, let me know. But otherwise, like, comment, subscribe, follow me elsewhere, and I'll see you next time. Bye!